Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very delayed episode of the Yinning at Life podcast with your host here, Kimberley Roberts of SolefulYin Yoga and Wellness Center. So it has been a hot minute since I have been here, so I do have to say I apologize for that. There was some health stuff going on, and I just didn't feel like I was in the right aligned energy to be able to put out some juicy content for you guys. So I took a little break and I'm back. So today what I want to talk about is your secret weapon. This secret weapon that you have that you probably don't even realize you have. And also this secret weapon that you abuse the most. Yeah, that you neglect the most. Yeah. And that is, any guesses? Anybody want to guess before I actually tell you what it is? It's your liver. Your liver, you know, that organ that detoxes and purifies everything that you put on you and that you put in you? Everything that you consume? That is your secret weapon. So why do I say it's your secret weapon? Here's the thing. So as you know from a Western medicine approach, because that's where I'm going to start, because some of you, you know, like if I start to talk about the Eastern approach of things, like, you know, I might lose you first. So let's talk about the Western approach. What exactly does your liver do? So if you're not 100% familiar, your liver is like your massive detox and purification organ. So everything that you eat, everything that you drink, everything that you put on your skin, your liver absorbs it. Everything. Even something that like a sublingular, you know, like supplement that you put under the tongue, like your liver processes everything, right? And so can you live without a liver? Absolutely not. It will regenerate itself when parts of it have been damaged, but it'll only do that so many times before, there's bits of it or parts of the liver that start to deteriorate, right? And start and end up being diseased. And then this is why you see people like with jaundice, right? With hepatitis, right? With like congested liver, liver failure, right? And it's because the organ has to detox and purify everything. And the sad thing is in our culture, especially in the, North American culture, I'm not so much like European cultures where food is grown and harvested differently. Here in North America, like our food is so heavily genetically modified, processed, manipulated. And so, like sometimes you'll look at a carrot and you're like, is that a carrot? Like, where did that come from? Because it's not just a carrot. It's now been, crossbred with something else to make it something, different. Like broccoli, right? Like that's a combination of broccoli and cauliflower together. You start to mix things and suddenly you end up with a different, product or produce. And so your body has to process all of that. And if you look at things like meat, for example, like the animals, what they ingest, like if you're not eating antibiotic, hormone-free, grass-fed, food, meats, like from happy cows and chickens and pigs, then you know what? Like all the stuff that they're pumped full of, you have to ingest as well. And your body has to process that. And so over time, what's happening is that our body is literally being overloaded with all of this processing. And then you couple on top of that the fact that many people have a very sedentary lifestyle, right? Like we sit too many hours a day. We are definitely a culture, and I mean, even myself, I try not to sit a lot. I do try to get out and move and be outside in nature, because it's one of the best things you can do for your liver is be outside and be connected to nature. So, but, like we sit too much. And so the liver doesn't like that sedentary environment. It likes flow. It likes movement. Think of your liver as almost like, well, it is energy, right? Because everything is energy. So if you think about energy, energy is a current, right? And a current is supposed to be always flowing. So it's the same thing with your liver. Like the liver likes an easy disposition. It likes things to flow in peace, in harmony, in alignment, right? But when we don't live that type of lifestyle, then the problem is that your liver takes over that load. Now, if we flip to Chinese medicine, so from the Eastern approach, yes, your liver is still like that major detox organ, right? It still purifies all the things that you put in your body and on your body, but it also has to detox and purify all your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So even though it has a primary emotion of anger with frustration and irritation and resentment and rage kind of like, like sprinkled in, it is still the organ that has to process all of the emotions. Okay. It is called the commanding general, and it's the ruler of our life. And so in Western medicine, like the liver is literally like, it's the most important organ that we have, right? And it especially likes an easygoing disposition, because when we are highly stressed, so I will tell you that stress is like the number one disruptor of your liver chi or your liver energy, right? I use the word chi and energy interchangeably. Okay, so it is the number one disruptor. So if you are someone who is highly stressed all the time, really anxious, and then you layer on top of that like a lot of anger or frustration or irritation, then you're really putting an excess load on that liver. And what is not happening, if I want to tie this back to the secret weapon, is that your liver, when everything is in flow in your life, like when you are in flow, like you are moving through your life with ease and it's effortless and everything is just like on the right frequency, right? You're on the right vibe, and it's like, this is coming to you and that's coming to you. And it's just like, it feels literally like the biggest exhale to your nervous system. Like your liver loves that energy, right? So when you are in the opposite energy of that, so if you are in stress and anxiety all the time, and then you layer on some frustration with that, then energetically, your liver gets congested and it starts to contract. And your liver doesn't like contraction. It likes expansion. If you think about flow is expansion, right? Like contraction is anything but flow. It's the complete opposite. It's resistance. And your liver does not like resistance. It likes a non-resistant state. So the more that you stress, the more you start to compound resistance. And resistance is not flow. And abundance is not flow. So those of you sitting out here wondering, like, I want to attract all kinds of incredible things into my life, and I want to do all these, magical things, and none of this is happening. It's like, well, take a look at your liver. Look at the health of your liver. Look at your lifestyle. What are you doing? What are you consuming? Like not just eating, but consuming, like on social media. Like, are you sitting and watching the news all day long, right? Are you highly stressed out? Are you sitting around and not moving your body? What are you putting in your body? Is it toxic? Like, what are you putting on your skin? Or are the products you're putting on your skin toxic, right? Like that all has a compound effect on your liver, and you becoming more and more in a contracted state instead of a non-resistant state. And when you are in a resistant, contracted state, abundance cannot flow to you because you are then in a lack energy. And lack will only attract lack, lack, right? Just like abundance will only attract abundance. You can't attract abundance if you're in a lack energy. They're the complete opposite of each other, right? So if you wonder why things are not rolling in your life like you want them to, the first place to look at is your secret weapon, your liver. Because I'll tell you, the moment that you start to clean up your liver, you start to detox and purify it. And this is exactly what I'm doing right now in my 4-week series called Purified with Purpose, right? Like we're heading into week 3 coming up. And this is potent because we use acupressure and reflexology techniques. We use breath work, meditation, and of course, Yin Yoga and a lot of mindset, mindfulness to realize like what we're actually doing to that organ emotionally, mentally, energetically, physically, spiritually, psychologically, like it's all connected. And so in this series, I'm teaching my students right now, like it's more than just purification of the actual organ itself from a Western perspective. Like, I see these people going on, oh, I'm just going to do, it's spring now, which is, the perfect time for cleansing, right? So a lot of people go and do these big juice cleanses that, with lots of beets and lemon in them and, like other things like cilantro to detox their liver. But that actually might not be the only thing that they need to do. In fact, that could be, depending on that person's constitution and what's going on with their liver, whether they're in a deficient or an excess energy in their liver. Like someone who has deficient liver qi, the worst thing you can do is actually have lemon or anything sour. It actually is the worst thing you can do. So this is why I'm not really a big fan of like juice and smoothie cleanses unless they've been regulated through some sort of holistic practitioner or naturopathic doctor or a Chinese, medicine practitioner, like somebody who actually has like a background in your health and what exactly is going on. But what I teach in my Purified with Purpose, it's not about like, let's just do a 4-week juice cleanse. Like it has nothing to do with that. I do give options of like recommendations of what you should take out of your diet to improve the detoxification and purification of it. But it's really a lot more about the mindset that we really dive into, because that is a huge piece of your liver qi health. Like it's massive. If you don't have that piece properly aligned, you are going to stay in a lack energy where you won't be able to attract what you desire because you're not in flow. If your liver is not in flow, if it's in a contracted state, guess what? That's all you're going to attract is more of the same. So it really is about cleaning up that organ on all levels, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, energetically, emotionally. And so if this is something that you really want to dive into, you can jump into my program. We are going into week 3 of 4, but you have lifetime access. So you can hop in whenever you want and you can do, you can take it at your own pace. And so I'll link that up in the show notes for you. But if we get back to like your liver health, okay? Like, if you think about when you are in a contracted state, like if you're just sitting there and you start to do some breath work and you start to tap into your body and you can feel maybe where you're holding resistance, right? Like it's typically throat, chest, belly, like those are the 3 big areas. Not saying that you might not be holding elsewhere. A lot of people hold in the shoulders, right? Or the lower back. But if you can tap in for a moment where you're feeling misaligned, where you're feeling contracted, and then start to have some conversations with yourself around, well, what is it that's actually causing those contractions? And I'll tell you, it'll have something to do with your thought patterns because it's all connected. Like in Chinese medicine, they don't just look at the physicality, right? Like when they look at the organ, like as the liver is an example, because we're on this roll about talking about the liver, like they're not just looking at like the physical function of it and the physical health of that organ. Like they'll talk about the mental aspect and the emotional aspect because they're huge. Whereas in Western medicine, their only interest and concern is the physicality. But again, that's what they've learned, right? Like that's what they go to school for. Whereas like with a TCM, like traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, yes, they learn about the physical, the anatomical role of organs, but then they take it to another level where it's also about the mental and emotional function of the organs, right? So it's not just like what I eat and what I drink and what I put on my skin, but it's also like, what am I thinking? Like, are my thoughts toxic? Because if my thoughts are toxic, guess what has to process that? It's not just your mind that processes your thoughts. It's your body too. Like you're not disconnected. Your mind is not disconnected from your body. It is one big holistic connection of body to mind and to soul too, right? Like you have this physical body, this human body that's got, bones and it's got flesh and it's got, like all the things in it, right? And it's got blood flowing through it. And so that's the physical. And then it has a primal brain that sits up here that's hardwired to look for like all the things that don't feel safe, right? And your liver has to process all of that. So if you're in a situation where you're looking to change something in your life, like just as an example, like say you're changing your job or you want to change your job, you're not happy where you are, you've been there for a long time, it's just not fulfilling anymore. So you know what, there's an opportunity where you work where you could advance to another position and you're like, oh my God, like that sounds incredible. Like I'm reading the job description and this is exactly like what I want. So you start to go through the process of filling out all the forms and whatever, maybe making appointments to meet with the person who's doing the interviews in HR. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't know what this is going to be like. Like, what if I do get this job? Then what? Like, are my hours of work going to change? Or obviously my responsibilities are going to change. Oh, I don't know what to do with that. Like, that's kind of scary because I don't really know what that's going to be like. And you see these thought patterns that you start to have come from your primal brain that is going, oh my God, change in job. That's scary. That is not safe because we don't know what that's like. Whereas like, your soul that's inside of you is like, that was the one that was going, apply for that job because damn, that's exactly what you are meant to do, right? So your soul will have that spark of what it wants, but then it's your primal brain that'll kick in and go, no, we can't do this because it's too scary. It's the same kind of scary as if you were standing in front of a bear. Like your primal brain sees the same thing. It just sees danger, right? And anything that is outside of the norm is considered dangerous. And so your liver has to process all of that. It's not just the physical. It's like, oh, the change in job. There's resistance with that because it's scary. And so your liver has to function with that, right? And so if you're holding in your emotions all the time, you're definitely creating a contracted state in your liver chi. And over time, if you're not dealing with that deficiency, like that chi imbalance, then what happens is your body will start to manifest physical stuff, like physical symptoms will start to come up. Maybe it'll be like slightly reduced like liver function. It could be like you're not digesting as well as you used to It could be skin stuff because your liver is very much related to skin, right? Like maybe you're starting to break out a lot. Maybe you're experiencing hormonal imbalances now. Maybe you're having joint pain or ligament pain, right? Which is also associated to liver. Maybe there's eyesight stuff going on because that's associated with liver. Like your body will start to manifest some physical symptoms for you to look at. And if you're not paying attention and if you're not aware, then that whatever symptoms are going to start to get magnified and they're going to grow and expand. And next thing you know, you're probably going to be in a state where you're literally being forced now to deal with it because it's now affected the quality of your life and the quality of your health to a point where, you know what, you're in pain. Or you're just not living your life the way that you were meant to, right? In freedom and in abundance. And you're getting more and more frustrated and irritated and angry and maybe even a little bit like resentful now, right? Like there's this compound effect that happens when we don't deal with one layer, whether it's like we suppress all the emotions because many of us have been taught in this society to suppress anger. Right? It's not appropriate to express that emotion especially in public or towards other people. And then physical stuff will just continue to magnify and grow. And it just keeps it's like you're a hamster on a wheel and you're just going round and around and around, just creating more of the same, more imbalance, more dis-ease, more disease, right? Until you actually sit and deal with it. But your liver, even other emotions like worry or sadness or grief or fear, like they each have their own organ set that they're associated with in Chinese medicine. However, your liver, because it's the commanding general, the ruler of your life, it still goes, oh, we're sad? Okay, well, let's try to diffuse the sadness, right? Like it's always trying to bring you back into that easy flow. That's what it wants. It wants you to be carefree and non-resistant. So if you think about like an elastic band, when you stretch out an elastic band and it's right at that max where it's literally just about to snap. Well, when you get to that state, you are in such a contracted state in your liver that you're now feeling it like literally across your abdomen. Like it's not just in your liver anymore. Like it's in your solar plexus. It's over in your spleen. It's in the back, right? And it's like, and then it feels like you've literally got a corset that is wrapped around your rib cage, and like someone is at the back pulling the strings on it to get it tighter and tighter. And it's actually you that is standing behind yourself, pulling those strings. You're the one that's doing it. And some of you out there might be thinking, no, it's not me. No, it's somebody else, my partner, it's the economy, it's my job, it's this relationship, it's my mom, it's my kids. Like, but you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Life will life you. This is part of our human experience, is that you are going to have experiences where life is not going to be that easygoing, carefree vibe. Shit's going to happen. But when the shit happens, what you have control over is how you react to it. And you see, this is what your liver is looking at. It's looking at, well, how are you reacting to the situation that you're in? Like you may, have no control. Say you lost your job. Okay. That's just an example. Say you got laid off. You had no control over that. It wasn't your decision. So does it suck? Absolutely. Of course it does. But it's how you respond to that once the initial shock wears off, right? Because losing your job is a big thing, right? So, but once that awareness of, holy crap, this just happened to me, filters by, then you can start to look at it in a different way. And if you believe that you're always supported and that there is a source above you that has always got your back, and that everything always works out for you, then you know what? You'll start to maybe look at the situation a little differently. Oh, well, could this possibly be an opportunity for me to do something else? Was I really happy there? Like, what if the answer is no? What if the answer to that was no? You're like, you know what? I actually wasn't really happy. And I'll tell you, this actually happened to me many, many years ago when I was back in the corporate world. I was working for an IT company back in the day when like stocks or shares in private corporations were like ridiculous, right? The amount that they were worth was like, it was better than having a pension plan, right? It was stock options. But then I was also in a situation where I worked for one company where when everything in the IT economy started like crashing, and then, like stocks were worth less than a piece of toilet paper. And so I got laid off from a company. And it was funny because the company I was working for at the time, I was a network administrator. So I knew that the company was going through layoffs, right? Because I was the one who managed everybody's network account. And so when the CEO and the CFO sat me down one day and they were like, yeah, we're starting to go through layoffs, we will advise you who the next person is going to be because you're going to need to remove their access. I was like, okay. So this was happening every Friday. In fact, this was brutal. Like every Friday morning, everybody would put up a box on their desk. This was the packing box, right? Because somebody was getting laid off and it was always at 3:00. So they would make it wait till the end of the day, right? On a Friday afternoon. So every week, everybody would put out their box, including me. And I always got the email first thing in the morning. So one Friday I rolled into work and all of a sudden it's like 10:00 and I'm like, I haven't gotten an email yet. Oh. And it didn't even dawn on me that it was me being laid off. I thought, oh, well, maybe the layoffs are done, because at that point they had actually laid off like a lot of people, like more than half of the company was laid off. So I kind of just like forgot about it. And then 2:55 rolled in and my boss came up to me and looked at me and said, Mike wants to see you. And my stomach just dropped. Like I had a brick that literally sunk to the pit of my stomach. And I knew right then. So I go upstairs and I sit down and I'm very defensive. And Mike starts to explain how things are going with the business and blah, 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 and where they're rolling into. And I just looked at him and I said, so you're firing me, right? And I was very, very, very like irritated. I was pissed off and I was trying to like hold that in, and I was having a really hard time because I knew that, you know what, I want to have them as a reference. So I really don't want to piss them off that much. So I was like, so you're firing me, right? And Mike was like, no, we're not firing you. No, there's a big difference. We're laying you off because this is the direction we're going with in the company. And your job actually no longer aligns with that. And I'm like, so really you are kind of firing me, because is there not something else I could do? And he's like, no, but you're not being fired. You're being laid off. And I was like, okay, well, in my mind, anyways, I did not think of that. So there I was. I went and packed up my box, left, got into my car, drove home, and I burst out in tears. And I'm sitting there in my walk-in closet, bursting in tears. And my husband comes in and he's like, what's wrong? So I tell him the whole story and I'm freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, like I got no job, right? And he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, we'll be fine. And then he turns to me and he says, you weren't even happy working there. And I kind of just looked at him and I went, oh God, you're right. I was fucking miserable there. It was I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it was, out of any job I have ever had in my life, it was the absolute worst company I've ever worked for. In fact, my boss was one of the most miserable, manipulative people. And I don't say that. I don't disrespect people at all. I mean, he had a lot of his own stuff that he was dealing with, but I'll tell you, I found out like a couple of months later that he got laid off. And apparently the day he got laid off, the people that were left there, there weren't that many, but everybody stood in line at the front of the building and clapped as he walked out with his box, because he was that disliked, because he was that awful to work with and to work for. So my husband was like, you should be really happy because your boss was an asshole. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, you're right. He was. And I started to feel better. And I was like, okay, now that that shock had worn off, I was like, maybe this is actually a really good thing. Because you know what? As much as we may not be happy in something, we're happy with the fact that it's comfortable and that it's known, right? And to the ego, to the primal brain, that's safe, right? So this opened up an opportunity. Now, way back then, did I know anything about like emotions and like liver qi health and Chinese medicine? No, I did not know any of that. In fact, I wasn't even practicing yoga back then, not alone practicing Yin Yoga, right? So it was really interesting because as I look back at that time in my life, I realized that it was such a blessing. And if I could have even looked at it with a little bit more compassion towards myself, it would have been just a little bit easier to digest. And my liver would have been a lot happier with it, right? But I didn't have that awareness back then. And this is the thing, like, part of what I love teaching in my yin classes, it's not about the stretch, like for me, it's all about your awareness of what is happening in your body, but also what is happening in your energy. Like on my website, I say right on the main page of my website, feel the flow. It's the flow of energy that I want you to start to tap into. It's like garden hoses in your body. Have you got a whole whack of kinks in them that are now congesting your liver and preventing it from flowing with ease? Or have you got all the tools to unkink those hoses and allow the energy to flow freely like water would flow through, a kinkless hose? Like, it's your choice. You are the one that has control over that, nobody else. And so the more that you can start to look at your life and look at the thoughts that you're having, you're going to start to see just how directly affected your liver qi is to all of this. This is what I hope for you. This is what I teach in my courses and in my series and my master classes and in my, my weekly live stream classes. This is what I teach. It's all about your awareness. And I blend it with other holistic tools like acupressure and reflexology and breath work, because they all do similar things, but in slightly different ways. They help to regulate your nervous system, which is really important. It helps to ensure that the flow of your liver qi is moving smoothly, so that you can live in a non-resistant state as you're meant to, right? Resistant state only creates suffering. And that's not what we're here to do. We're not here to suffer. We're actually here to live like in peace and abundantly and in freedom. This is the vibe that we're meant to be here for. So anyways, that is my little spiel about your secret weapon, your liver. So start to look at this organ a little bit more differently, from just the fact that it detoxes and purifies. Think of it more energetically. And if you're really tapped in and tuned into more of this, come and join me in Purified with Purpose. You can start whenever. You got lifetime access, and there's some incredible tools in it that you can literally use every single day to change the state of your liver qi. So thanks so much for joining me in today's podcast episode. I will see you next time.